Okay, hi Louise. Thank you so much for being here today. It's really kind of you to come on and share your experiences with me. So I wondered whether you could just give us a little bit of background into, I guess, your journey in life, how you come to find yourself here. I know you've been through quite a traumatic few years, but you've overcome adversity, and this is what this little session is all about, talking about how, we go through these times in life, but actually when we come out the other side, we are open to this whole world of opportunities past trauma. So I'm wondering whether you could just take me back and sort of tell me about how you come to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, for having me on. I love chatting about my story because it actually makes me realise what you can do when you put your mind to it. Because years ago, well, actually, throughout my life, I'd suffered with anxiety, and it had come in different forms. So I'd had an eating disorder, and then it had turned into normal anxiety. Then it came out as health anxiety. So whenever I sort of managed one, another one popped up. And
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why I had to keep having this sort of roller coaster of emotional trauma and turmoil going on in my life. And I couldn't just be like other people, or like my husband, who was on this sort of like long line of
Yeah.
just the nice,
I
like
know,
drive
like a level
along.
plane. So had you always had anxiety? Was it something that had always, been in your life then from an early age?
I remember being a child with it. I remember at the time I didn't realize what it was, but I remember when I was really, really young. I mean, even talking about 4 or 5, I used to have an anxiety that my mum was going to die constantly. I mean, I know most kids get that sort of feelings, they have little nightmares, but it was constant, and it was always like a foreboding, a dread. I had to watch her come home. It felt like I was in charge of her safety. And if I didn't do certain things, or if it was my fault if something happened to her. And I thought at the time that was normal to me, but when I look back and I see how my children are growing up without that, I realized that was anxiety. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've had it all my life.
Yeah, amazing. It's amazing how it manifests, isn't it? And we don't realize at the time. I remember
Yeah.
doing something very similar as a child. So yeah, I guess we always have elements of it. And then as life went on, how was it in your life? How did it enter your life and carry on that way?
Yeah, so it started with other people. So it'd be my mum. I'd have an anxiety about my mum. And it was strange because it was never my dad. I could never understand how it was never my dad. Someone that I loved him any less or anything. It's just always my mum. Then it became about me. So it'd come from my mum, and I didn't have it from my mum anymore. And it was all about me. I was going to die. I was going to get ill. I was going to get disease. I was this, that, and the other. Then, in ways to cope with that, I used to spend money, and then I had an eating disorder, so it was constant distraction. So
Yeah.
that I had bulimia, which distracted me from the thoughts. It was just constant
Yeah.
thoughts in my head all the time. Yeah. So, and then when I had kids, it manifested into worrying about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't like, I mean, everybody worries about their kids, but it was ridiculous worry. Like, I wouldn't let my 1-year-old play with anybody because I thought she was going to get some disease and die. It
Yeah.
was ridiculous. And I washed all the toys. I made them wash their hands. I constantly washed mine. Oh, it was just so isolating and awful. I just can't imagine being in that place anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound like an element of OCD, and we do find with health anxiety that we do have these OCD traits that are very much linked. So people with health anxiety will have an element of OCD characteristics in them, and they can be quite severe, or they can be just quite, tame and or somewhere in the middle. So I mean, it can be completely debilitating when you're living with stuff like that.
Yeah, it can. And I could never explain to people how it was that bad. I mean, because it's strange how now when I talked about my cancer journey, people can kind of relate to that because it's a physical thing, or cancer's talked about more than mental health, especially anxiety, I think, is getting better. But
Yeah.
I just didn't have any support. It was like no one understood. And I think that was what was worse is, I mean, if I'd have gone up to anyone and told them what I was doing day to day, they'd have thought I'd gone mad. And even my family members used to watch me when if my daughter had touched the hand of another child, I'd go and wash her hand, and I'd do it like in a way they wouldn't see, but they could see. And then
Yeah.
I remember my dad giving me some toys that he'd found, or someone had gave him, and I washed them all, and they just thought it was lunacy. But to me, it was unbelievably important that this had
Yeah.
to be done, or else I was going to pass on some disease to my child. She was going to die, and it would be my fault.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's really, really, really tough to live like that, and exhausting, when you're constantly on the lookout for stuff, when you're
yeah.
constantly looking out for washing hands, running around like a mad thing. It's really tiring. So then what happened? What happened with your health anxiety? How did that go?
So I had two really bad bouts of it, where I had one just before I was pregnant with my first child, which was when I was at the doctor's constantly every day, shaking. I didn't know I thought I was having heart attacks. So I didn't understand it then. I kept having panic attacks and didn't know what they were. Then another bout I had just after my daughter was born, and that got really bad. And that's when I started running, because I remember that I don't know how the sort of little bits of running started, but it was to escape this.
Yeah,
And I always felt better when I was outside, always. So I'd get in a state in the house and I'd be so scared, and I didn't know what I was scared of, that I'd literally run out the door. And I just didn't know what I was running from. And then I'd just run down the road and it'd be like, oh my God. And then I'd feel a little bit better. And I remember thinking, oh, and then I started doing the running and realized it was about the running and how it made me feel better. But I do remember that I couldn't stand being indoors. And even now, I find it hard to be inside,
yeah, yeah.
because I think
Running is amazing for you for mental
so
space. When you
important.
are running, you're not really thinking about very much. I don't know about you, but I don't really think about an awful lot. It's just you and the surroundings, and yeah, you just get to focus. You get to clear your mind. It's very, very good for you. But I guess back in those days, maybe you were just running from the anxiety, running from that feeling of having to be in control of everything, I suppose.
I think
Um,
so. I think it was that, but at the time it was. It's so hard, and I know, like, you'll know, and people who are in anxiety or out of anxiety, because I know it'll come back. I know I have to manage it. It's never going to not be with me. It's part of who I am.
yeah.
And I can never, it's like I'm two different people, because when I'm out of it, I'm like, can't remember what it was like, or I can get little snippets of the feeling, but I can't be in it. When I'm in it, I can't imagine life not in it. It's like two different personalities.
Yeah, that's so true. And I always describe that feeling as a bit like childbirth. You know how like when you have a baby, it's horrific, the pain and all the rest of it, and then you very quickly forget. And so
Yeah.
what we find is when we come out of health anxiety, we really forget what it was like until we maybe find ourselves going backwards or back into those old habits again. And then we forget what it was like to not have it. It's that real weird, I always call it like carrying a handbag around with this health anxiety, like it feels weird when you're not carrying that handbag with all of that anxiety sort of, carrying around with you. So yeah, it's very, very strange, but yeah, that's very, very common.
Yeah, it's just, and it was like trying to explain to other people. And then when I've got friends who have got health anxiety, I'm trying to put myself back in their position, but I can't when I'm not in it. But when
Yeah,
I'm in it, I can go, yeah, totally. But I do get it. I totally can. And some days there'll be a point where I can just see myself slipping back, and you get
yeah,
that awful feeling.
yeah. Yeah, and you have to recognize it and
Yeah.
deal with it then. Yeah. So sadly, a few years ago, your health did take a turn, and you did have breast cancer. So do you
Yeah.
want to just talk us back through what happened at that point?
Yeah, so that was really ironic, in the sense that I had been struggling with health anxiety all those years. And then when I started to feel like I was getting out of health anxiety, it's not laughable because it's not funny, but I'd started training for the London Marathon, because I was like, right, okay, I'm going to focus on something. I'm doing really well with my running. I think I'm going to be able to achieve the London Marathon. Oh my gosh. And I actually was getting over health anxiety. I had therapy for 10 months. The running was doing really well. And I just remember in the March, I was like, oh, I'll have a mammogram, because we didn't get mammograms on the NHS until you're a certain age.
Yeah.
And I'd paid for one privately earlier, 3 years early. So I thought, well, I'll have it done just for peace of mind. You know what peace of mind's like with health
Yeah.
anxiety?
Yeah,
Peace of mind.
absolutely.
And it wasn't like I was craving the peace of mind like I used to, the reassurance. I just wanted to really set light on this new sort of thing, and not be worried about anything.
Yeah.
didn't have any symptoms. And I went for a mammogram and it came back clear. And I was like, yay, oh, I'm moving forward. And I remember in the shower about 3 weeks later, I was like, right, now I did do checks, but I was always a little bit like, oh, what if I find some, oh, like you do. But I thought, oh no, I'm totally clear. I've had this mammogram, it's clear. And I had a really, really good feel. And I'd lost a bit of weight from the running. And I'd found because of it, I'd lost some weight off my boobs. And I could feel this really small thickening. And that's when I went to the doctors and they were like, oh, no, it's nothing. And they sent me to the breast clinic because of my history of the health anxiety. And I went there, ran there, not worried. Like, I mean, the opposite of what I was like 6 months
Yeah.
before. I was sat there shaking. I was like, oh, no, I'm fine. And they found cancer. I mean, how ironic is that?
Yeah, it's really ironic, and to anybody watching that, I guess that would send you into a little bit of a panic at that point. But we have to bring it back to, this type of story is very, very rare. But also it's really, really important to be breast aware and to listen to your gut. So yeah, if you can get a checkup now in the NHS, they don't do it until you reach the age of 50 unless you pay for it privately. And that's something I've always campaigned against, because I had breast cancer at the age of 38. And I didn't have any lump. Again, something quite triggering for people that are watching this with health anxiety. But there is this double-edged sword where we do have to be aware of our body. And like you just said, I wanted to feel it, but then I was thinking, oh, I don't want to find anything. So it's that you almost don't want to press too hard in case you do find something. But I guess in terms of health anxiety, we just have to be mindful that we have to know our bodies and we have to follow our gut. And if that means going back to the doctors 10 times, then we have to do it. And our stories are very rare. This breast cancer is not a common thing. So I'm really, really sad that you had to go through that at that point. So what happened then? Obviously, you got the diagnosis.
Yeah, I got the diagnosis, and I would have said that that would have turned me back into my health anxiety days, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It was a different path I went on. It was like a productive path. I always felt with anxiety and health anxiety that it was because nothing else was productive in my life, that my brain had gone on this production of negativity, which was always about checking and finding things and Googling.
Yeah.
Yet because I had the breast cancer to focus on, and it was productive because obviously I had to advocate for my second breast off. I had to go to appointments. It was all about getting better. I didn't have time for health anxiety.
No.
So when it was kind of like, well, really, I've got to kind of keep myself alive and I've got to get this and with the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So in a way, it kind of did go where you'd expect it to cause it. For me, it didn't. And then I went on this journey and I had my left breast off in the June, my right in the August, and they had to do quite a few CTs and things to find out if it had spread, and it hadn't spread. But because it was lobular, which is really hard to see on scans, which is why they didn't see it on the mammogram, they couldn't really sort of find things until they'd done all these tests.
Yeah.
So it was probably about 16 weeks before I really knew it hadn't spread.
Yeah.
So that's when I sort of really woke up and had the epitome of sort of what have I been doing? I've got to live my life. And I think what it was with the health anxiety turning around, and I haven't had it since, was the whole confidence in myself and body's ability to keep me alive.
Yeah.
So before, I would say that I was really underconfident in what my body was capable. I was really underconfident in what I could achieve in any kind of trauma or any kind of situation that was scary. I thought I'd crumble, and I didn't. I got through it. I worked really hard. I was strong. I was resilient. And so by the end of the journey, I was like, oh my God, my body was amazing. It healed. I found this. I advocated this. I did this. And to be honest,
Very strong. Yeah.
it was all about that. The health anxiety and all the anxieties I'd had was all about my mindset of what I was able to cope with.
Absolutely. It's so amazing this, because I talk about this a lot with my clients, how we envisage something like that worst case scenario that no one ever wants to go through. No one wants to go through breast cancer, right? So we envisage it, and it's always that horrific. It's a horrific story that we tell ourselves. Now, if in the very unfortunate circumstance that any of these things that we ever think about do come true, we actually are far stronger than we ever would imagine. We are really, really stronger. Our bodies are super clever. Our body knows how to heal. Okay, so all of that worry that we spend that time we spend focusing on whatever it is that could possibly happen, if in the unfortunate circumstance that it does happen, we are actually really, really good at getting through it. And it's
Yeah.
never as bad as we imagined. It's never as bad as that time we spent stressing and worrying. We are super, super clever at getting through.
Yeah, and it's totally about that. Absolutely. Because I do remember thinking that I wouldn't be able to cope if that happened to me. I wouldn't be able to do, but you haven't got a choice. You just do. It takes over and you have no choice. And your body does these amazing things. And I think you forget the mind and body are connected so much, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I do now realize that a lot of the way I was my thoughts telling my body to do certain things. And I'm not sure, the stress and all this anxiety and all the worry and all the stress didn't sort of help the situation, because it makes you quite weak and it affects your immune system and all those things now I'm aware of. At the time I wasn't.
Yeah.
You do realize that your mind is so powerful,
Absolutely.
so powerful.
It really is, and it is the catalyst to all of this. You know, our mind controls what our body does. It's super, super clever. So once we can appreciate that, then we really are on that sort of path forwards. Once we get our heads around that fact, because it's really hard for people to understand that our bodies can create symptoms based on what we think.
Yeah,
But once we know that, we recognize that, then it all becomes so much clearer. But yeah, you're right. And I think a lot of times with health anxiety is control. So,
yeah,
you want to have control over what your body's doing. And for you, having that control almost taken away. So you're now on a path to cancer recovery. You were told about your surgeries, this was happening, this was happening. And I recognized that when I was, you're looking to the next treatment, to the next whatever it is, the next scan. So the control is almost there. It's no longer with you and your mind and your body. It's been taken away. So once you've got that control and all these sort of scheduled, things in the diary, that's your focus. That's where you're
yeah,
headed. And I guess that is the switch. That's the turning point for you.
yeah.
So what happened? Tell me about what happened. So you had your surgeries.
Yeah.
Everything
So
went
when I
well.
had the surgeries, the running was still really important, because I'd planned to do the marathon in the October, and obviously I had a surgery in June and one in August, and then radiotherapy was scheduled for September. And everybody kept saying, no, you can't do the marathon now. But because of the control aspect of it and the productivity of my brain, I had to do that marathon.
Yeah.
Whether I did it or finished it or did it walking or crawled it, I had to do it, because it had to be about that mind focus. So I carried on running through the surgeries, probably like a couple of weeks after I'd started. I know, even now I think, what on earth?
You
But
are
I know at the
amazing.
time that's what kept me sane, and
Yep.
that's what kept me and I do believe that physically healed me better, because I wasn't in bed feeling sorry for myself or thinking, oh, I was being productive with, right, I've got this scar now. We're gonna heal. I'm gonna get up. And it was painful. I didn't go out running straight away. I did like little walk, and then I'd go and sit in the bed for a bit, and then I'd do a bit of a walk, and then the next week I'd do a jog. And it was only because I was fit before I went into the surgeries that I could carry on the training. But so yeah, I managed to do that marathon 6 weeks after that second surgery. I've got no idea. And I actually did it in a better time than I did the last one.
Amazing. I mean, hats off to
I
you,
don't, because
Louise.
I think it was
Seriously.
the drive and I think, like, you'll understand with the cancer, I didn't want to be pitied. I didn't like, as soon as you tell someone you got cancer, you get that, oh, and everyone feels sorry for you because you lost your boobs. And I was like, oh, don't feel sorry for me. I'm running this marathon. And it was kind of like that fight of, oh, I'm not, don't even feel sorry for me, because I was quite angry as well. Because
Yeah.
you get
There is
anger.
anger. Yeah, there is anger. Definitely anger
Yeah.
comes out. All sorts of emotions come out. But we have this inner strength that comes from nowhere. And I think a lot of time we don't even know it's in there. It just sort of pops up and goes, you've got this, you can do this. Actually, yeah, you've been through a pretty naff time, but you know what? We've still got life. You've got been given a second chance. You've
Yeah.
had your breast removed, but that doesn't stop you living your life. And yeah, that is amazing to have that goal and just, go for it. And
Yeah,
I can't
and I
believe you did it
liked
in
that.
six.
And now when I do marathons, I like the trauma of the marathon, and I don't know what it is, but I remember that first marathon was so driven and so, I mean, I was just like, what? I was lying on the floor. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. But it was the drive of it. And even in the last three I've struggled with, they've not been easy. I've been sick on two of them really bad. And I've had times where I've been on the floor even. But I liked it because I liked the resilience that the body showed. And in a sense, more the body, like,
Yeah.
the body is even up now. And I know it's doing it as a defense mechanism because it's doing it now. It thinks I'm running from a saber-toothed tiger because it's evolution.
That's exactly
It's
it. Yeah.
not, you haven't run 26 miles or whatever I was at, 24 miles for fun. So it's getting rid of everything in my digestion to keep me alive.
That's
And when you
exactly
realize
it.
that, the whole feeling of being sick for this reason becomes different.
Yeah.
And then you get up and off you go running again. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, my body's freaking, it's so amazing. And then you just realize that that was all the sort of journey with the cancer. And you just become in awe of
Yeah.
what the human body's.
Body is amazing, and I think because I've also run the London Marathon, not so quick after as you, but a couple of years after I had my surgery, and yeah, I think once you've set yourself that target and you're like, right, I'm doing it, and I didn't care what time I ran it in, I just wanted to achieve it, and I was running for a cancer charity, but I didn't care. I just said to myself, I can do this, even if, like you said, if I crawl around, hobble around at the end, I am determined to do it because I have full capability in my body. And people would say to me, did you ever get to the point where you just thought, I can't do it? And no, I didn't. I never got to that point because I knew my body was capable. And yes, you won't be sick, but that's again your body getting rid of all the stuff it doesn't need because it thinks you're running from danger. So yes, all these things might happen to you, but your body is doing exactly what it needs to do to get you through that. And that is the pure testament to how amazing our bodies are, is to be able to put it through these sort of things.
Yeah. And that's what's amazing. And that's what's kind of like, in a sense, the irony of the whole health anxiety, because health anxiety stems from that evolution of keeping you from danger. But
Yeah.
obviously, there's no danger there. It's just that you're constantly thinking
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah. You're
So,
right. You're trying to run from your own mind, and that's the scary thing. We can't run from our own mind. It's everywhere we go. So having an anxiety that involves trying to flee ourselves is really, really tricky. We can never do that. Amazing. I just think you're totally inspiring. So now you are the topless marathon runner, and tell me about this year because you ran the London Marathon this year.
yeah, I did that in April, and I would have that would have been my fourth marathon, but my third topless. But obviously, the London Marathon is such a platform that it was quite well. It was in the media a lot. But
Documented.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
things that have come from it, just the things that are changing now in the mastectomy world and the perception of women's breasts. I mean, I've got companies coming on and wanting to do AIs about how it's perceived and why the negativity. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's just opened up this whole can of worms of let's just get it sorted out, because it's bad enough getting the cancer, isn't it, and getting through that, and all these ladies who are going through it and having, and then at the end of it you've got all this whole another journey of all this feelings about yourself and how you are as a woman. I thought, well, that's got to stop, because we've had enough with the fighting the cancer without the rest of it. So
Yeah.
oh my God, so pleased that it's just got so much
It's
attention.
acceptable. Yeah, it's acceptable. I mean, I've seen underwear models, that campaigns where there's women all different, one boob, no boobs, whatever it is. It's all, and I've seen those quite a lot, and I think they are amazing. I would, hats off to anybody that's brave enough to do that. And for you, running with no top on, I think it's just incredible. You are such an inspiration.
Green as well, is so many positives to it, and that's what I couldn't get why it wasn't sort of out there more, because there are, once you get around what you're looking at, in the sense that there's no breasts but it becomes normalized, which is what I wanted to do. There's loads of positives. It's like that, let's look at those. I mean,
No
I'm not saying
jiggling up and down, no
it's
need for
not
bras. You can
the,
always look at your little dress, sundress. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even the sense of control, we're talking about control again, like, as obviously with the health anxiety, I think the way that some people's minds work are about that. And that's the way that your mindset sometimes keeps going back to, is sometimes when I do that, it's all about the control that I took on to decide that I wanted to stay flat. And now I've accepted it, and I'm just making other women feel that they can accept it. So it's all about that sort of empowerment of yourself and others, which is, I think, when that's taken away from you, that's the worst part, isn't it? And I think that's a lot to do with breast cancer. But when you can get that back in a form of what you do with the
Absolutely. Empowering other people to know what is normal. It's just, yeah, incredible that you can go on and be this, this guiding light for people. Because, let's face it, people are going through this, and there is a huge dilemma: what to do. Do you have reconstruction? Do you, so many things, so many questions that when you're in that sort of shock stage anyway. But for you just to normalize it and, make it just, the thing, I think is amazing. And like you say, there's so many positives. And running for one without a sports bra or any top. We see men all the time, don't we, with their tops off, the slight bit of sun that comes out, and equally for you, I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're an inspiration, Louise. You really are. So life now. So no health anxiety. You're living your best life. Running. So are you training? Are you doing another marathon coming up?
So I'm training at the moment for the Barnstable one, which is my town one. That's at 29th of September. So that's not too far away. I try and do 2 a year now, because I think any more than that, I don't want to ruin my body, in the sense that I like running. I don't want to
Yeah.
overrun.
It's very
And
time consuming training for a marathon. There's lots of hours to put into it. I don't have the time these days. I'm never saying never. I would possibly do another one, but I'd need a bit more time on my hands. I'd need to create some more time. But yeah, it's an incredible fit. I mean, the crowds are totally amazing, aren't they? Just throughout
yeah,
the whole run, there's 26.2 miles.
Breast now asked me to do next London Marathon next year as well. So I'm like,
Okay.
do it all again.
Yeah, it's a fantastic marathon. I mean, just crossing Tower Bridge was the highlight for me, and very emotional, because it's something that's so close to you. It's something that's so close to your heart. It's just and that sense of achievement, when you're at the end of it, when you can say you've done it, is amazing. So well done, Louise. I don't know how we met actually. I think we must have met online on social media somehow, didn't we? And I instantly gravitated towards you, obviously because of our story. But yeah.
And with you doing your sort of the health anxiety, it was really like, oh my God, I wish I'd have met you like 4 years ago.
Could have done with you. Yeah, no, it's been lovely. It's been lovely to find you and come into your world, and just hear about something so inspirational, because it just goes to show that health anxiety doesn't have to define us. It doesn't have to be our story. There is a way through, and actually, even despite adversity, there's an even better path through. So life throws us some real duff cards sometimes, but we can get up, dust ourselves off, and get back up there, and that's exactly what you've done. So I'm so super proud of you, and thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Thank you.
It's been so lovely. You take care. Thanks so much, Louise. Bye.
Bye.